Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cozy Corner Chronicles. I'm Julia.
And I'm Liz.
And obviously, there's something very different about our podcast this time.
Yay.
And that's because we are together in the one and only Ohio. So here we are filming podcast, our chapter chat for A Little Life. So let's get right into it.
Yes. So welcome to the super, super special episode because this is the first episode out of all the ones that we've done that we actually have been together. So very neat.
I know. Who's excited?
So we're going to start with part 3. We read chapters 1 and 2. So Julia, you want to kick us off with chapter 1?
Yes. So part 3 is called Vanities. And honestly, it seems like it's kind of focusing on Willem to start in a way. But anyway, part 3 finds Jude and Willem in their mid-30s, which we had talked about. We were so confused by the age.
Yes.
Like, we weren't keeping track of their ages, and suddenly everyone's like 30.
And then I'm like, okay, because, we kind of made a joke in the beginning how we were like, oh, like, this is, all of them, and we can kind of relate because we're like the same age. Like, did we do just like a time jump, or have they always been 30?
Yeah, because now we can't relate. So,
because we're not 30.
Exactly. We're near 30 now, but not exactly. But anyways, that's besides the point. Yeah, they're in their mid-30s. Willem is now a successful film actor and has finally moved out of Lispenard Street apartment, which, if you guys know, that's where him and Jude first started living when they were living together. But he continues to actually spend most of his time with Jude when he is not elsewhere shooting a movie. Jude has also achieved professional success as a lawyer, but his legs and his conditions have actually worsened, causing him to be in a wheelchair for a very long period of time. So, as Willem becomes more famous, he feels ambivalent about the treatment he receives. On film sets, he always struggles to acclimate to the special treatments that the stars like to give him, finding the infantilization kind of ridiculous. Like, he doesn't like to be babied.
Yeah.
Most of all, however, he worries about Jude when he's not with him, who seemed to be in good mental health for a period after the adoption, but then kind of fell back into his old patterns of cutting once again. So Willem's girlfriend of 4 years, Philippa, I'm sorry if I say that wrong.
Yeah, I didn't know how to say
Yeah, me either. Ends the relationship, with one of her primary reasons actually being how close Willem is to Jude. And with Jude in the picture, she never actually feels like she's the priority of Willem, which, like, it's kind of fair. Like, I get it.
It's fair, but she's kind of an asshole.
I know. I kind of think that too, knowing what Jude's condition is. But anyways, Willem does not feel particularly upset about the breakup and believes his lifestyle of devoting himself to his friends is a worthy one, which honestly kind of admirable of Willem. But I will say, like, it does kind of make me sad that Jude has gotten worse. And I think, like, seeing that, I think because in the last chapters of the second part, it was very much like, okay, yeah, Jude's not actually going to get any better. But now that we've jumped to Vanities in the second or the third part, it's like kind of solidifying it because now Jude's in a wheelchair.
And I think, like, with all of it to say, Willem is a really great friend. Like, honestly, I think for a minute I was like, wait, do Willem and Jude like each other?
I thought that too.
And then I'm like, but then Philippa, or whatever her name is, Philippa, I don't know, Philli, whatever. It's giving, like, not relationship, because I don't want to say, like, just because two guys are close they're gay, or
Right,
like, you know,
exactly.
anything like that. But it was, their relationship is more than, and I want to say it's even more than brotherly.
And I kind of agree with that too, because I feel like Willem and Jude are always Willem and Jude. Like, yeah, you have Malcolm and yes, you have JB, but it's always been Willem and Jude. But on top of that, I kind of get what you mean, because Willem is even when Harold and Julia, like, when they have Thanksgiving, Willem's there.
Yeah.
Like, when they go to travel, Willem's there.
I remember it was either Harold or Harold's friend that kind of not made a joke, but said, like, oh, like, you know, and they're like, oh, no.
But you know what? Maybe it's one of those things where maybe Willem doesn't really realize that yet.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they always portray Willem as the really handsome friend who gets whatever girl he wants. And then when he started dating Philippa, it was like oh, maybe he's finally settling down. But then when they broke up, he didn't even care, because he cares more about Jude, which honestly goes to say he's a fantastic friend, like we've said. And I really like Willem. I think Willem might actually be one of my favorite characters in the book thus far.
I think so too. And and Harold.
Yeah.
And I honestly will say, like, Jude knows that Harold and Willem are really good for him, but then that's when the
insecurities and the fear, I know. And I think you definitely see this because it's the same kind of push and pull. Like right before the adoption, Jude was kind of, they're not going to want to be my friend. Oh, they're not going to like me.
Mhm.
And then same thing now where he's like, oh crap, I'm getting worse.
Right.
Like, and he's kind of pushing the same insecurities and anxiety about losing people because things are not going so great for him.
Right.
But with that being said, do you want to take us into chapter 2 of part 3?
Yes. So Jude was kind of teeter-tottering between staying at the Attorney General's office and going to a different
like private.
Yeah, like a private law
owned.
And he, again, was debating really back and forth about this, even asked Harold about it. And Harold was like, no, Jude. Like, you should not do that. And really, the only reason he did want to do it was for money.
Mm-hmm.
And Harold was like, if it's money that you need, like, I can give you all the money in the world. And Jude was like, nah. Like, I don't want your money, all this stuff. So, at age 36, Jude ends up taking this job for this corporate law firm. And, of course, Harold does not like it. And Harold believes that Jude's good heart is going to be a waste at the firm, which I totally agree. I think they're going to take advantage of him. And basically, he would be going to defend the people that he was prosecuting.
Right.
And so Harold just didn't think that was a good idea. And so even though he doesn't verbalize it to Harold, Jude really wants the job because, again, he's scared of what's going to happen in the future with him. Now that he knows his legs are getting worse, he knows that he's probably going to have bigger medical expenses than just this.
Right.
So he knows his health is going to continue to deteriorate. Shortly after taking that new job, one of Jude's friends, Richard, starts explaining that he inherited this building from his father and wanted to sell a loft that takes up one of the floors. And obviously, Richard lives in the building as well. Jude hears about this and he's like, yeah, like he's totally excited about it. And it goes to this story where Jude has to go up the stairs because the elevator is broken at his apartment now. And he calls he calls Willem, and he's calling him and calling him and calling him, doesn't pick up. And so Jude, of course, being Jude, walks up the stairs by himself in the condition that he is and is carrying his fucking big ass wheelchair.
Like, dude, that, and not only that, I remember it explained, he was already in so much pain. Like, he literally was like, fuck, like, he was getting so angry. He was like throwing his papers and stuff because he was in so much pain. Of course, the elevator didn't work, and now he's got to carry this big ass wheelchair up 5 flights of stairs.
5 flights. Imagine, like, the pain that he must have endured even going up 1 flight of stairs.
I know.
And having to carry his wheelchair at the same time. Honestly, F that wheelchair. Like, it would have to be downstairs.
I know, because it was sad, though, because he called Willem, then he called Andy, then he called Harold, and, like, nobody picked up. So it was, like, in that moment, I think he realized, he was like, okay, I gotta, like, stop depending on people, because obviously there are going to be moments like this where no one's available, and I'm going to have to deal with it.
And what's crazy is, like, they didn't even intend not to be available. Like, I think it said Willem was at a party.
Yeah, and he didn't hear his phone.
And he didn't hear his phone, and, like, all this stuff. So, anywho's, after he climbed up the stairs, Willem ended up finding him convulsing on the floor after he arrived at his apartment. And obviously he arrived, he knew that something was wrong with Jude because of all the missed calls. So, combined with the great price of Richard's offers and just the unreliable conditions of the elevator at Lispenard, it convinced Jude to buy the property. Now, he was going back and forth with buying it because he was actually saving up to remove the scars on his back.
Yes, with this, like, procedural, like, it was like an experimental science thing that Andy ended up finding out about.
Right.
And Andy was like, don't do it, Jude.
Yeah, and he was like, you would never recover from it because your open sores, like, you wouldn't be able to heal and, like, all this stuff. And so Jude was like, what do you mean? Because, you know, I saved up all this money to do it. And he was like, yeah, no. So he ended up using that money to buy the loft.
Right. And the renovations and stuff.
Yep, and the renovations. So then Jude ends up hiring Malcolm, who is now an internationally recognized architect, and he co-owns a firm with his girlfriend, Sophie. And he wants Malcolm to oversee these designs and renovations in his loft. And Malcolm completes this design that's, like, ADA compliant and accessible accommodations for Jude. And Jude's like, No, don't want the bars. Don't want to do anything with putting bars up in the shower, like any of that stuff. And Malcolm's like, Jude, like, this is just for future things, just in case. And he comes up and Malcolm and Jude is like, no, I don't want it. I don't want you to put any of those things there. I don't need it. And he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna leave this here, and I just want you to think about it. And that was really the end of chapter 2.
And like these 2 chapters, I think we keep doing shorter chapters because of the fact that the first time we read, it was a lot. But these 2 chapters are really short. And I will say like a significant thing I remember at the end of that last chapter where they're talking about the ADA accommodations is that Jude ends up kind of reflecting and being like, oh, now when I look back on it, Malcolm, Harold, Willem, they were all doing things for me to kind of keep my future in mind.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really sweet because we, like at this point, we had only really seen Willem and Harold doing things specifically for Jude, not so much Malcolm and JB. But this was the first time I think that we had seen Malcolm coming from a really great friend standpoint and being like, let's think about it. Because I also remember Jude saying later on when he reflected that his place was always made big enough for his wheelchair to do like a full 360.
Yep.
And that was all Malcolm. And I think that was really sweet. And I actually really like the fact that Malcolm, now we see his success because it's nice to actually see all 4 of them are very successful. And even in this chapter, I think they also mentioned that JB isn't really in the picture right now. Like JB only comes around when he needs something, which is kind of sad. We kind of all, I feel like there are friends who are going to be like that, but maybe later on in the chapters, we'll figure out why JB is
not
kind of
coming
MIA.
around,
right.
yeah.
So
it was really interesting. And then I think we also see like a standpoint with Willem, like kind of like how we talked about earlier, just where he, like, no matter who you are, you're not going to be more important than his friends. You're not going to be more important than Jude, especially. And again, that just alludes to me like maybe there is something more, or maybe he does really look at him like as a brother, but I don't know. I just feel like the love goes beyond.
I agree. And I think an interesting point too was when they were talking about how Philippa and him were breaking up, Willem had made the statement like, I actually sacrificed stuff to be with you. So she didn't feel loved, right? She didn't feel like she was the priority. But he had mentioned stuff like, oh, during holidays, I decided I wasn't going to go spend it with Jude and Harold and Julia because instead I was going to go spend it with Philippa and her family. Or, oh, I would miss things with Jude to come be with you. And to me, that shows effort because of like considering the fact that Willem and Jude were so close. I get why she felt that way though, that she wasn't the priority, absolutely. But in the sense though, like I think Willem did put in the effort that he could best do.
Yeah, definitely. You know? And I think it was like unfair in a way for Willem because it's like now she's giving him an ultimatum, like you need to choose between me or you need to choose between Jude. And like obviously you would not have won that fight.
Right.
Nobody would win that fight.
Nobody. And I thought that was interesting. Like because I think the one thing we don't really get to see is everyone's significant others. Because even then, this whole chapter with Malcolm and his girlfriend Sophie, a big thing about them is like, oh, am I going to get married or am I not? And then I remember Jude and Malcolm have the conversation of like, are you going to propose to her? What's going on? Because he even takes the suit to get him a suit tailored. And Malcolm's like, oh, man, I don't know. But that's what I wanted to talk to you about. He's like, I kind of feel like I have to because I'm already like 38 or something. Yeah. And my parents want me to get married. She's kind of expecting it, but I don't know if that's what I want. Yeah. And then you're kind of like,
it's interesting. It's really interesting because, again, like I feel like for all of them, like romance is just not.
It's like their friendships.
Yeah.
And that's kind of wholesome, but I'm wondering if it's also the time difference. You know what I mean? Like maybe in that era, marriage wasn't really as that popular. You know, but I don't know, but in my mind though, back then I feel like people got married earlier.
That's what I'm thinking,
right? But now that they're 38,
38, okay, when I found out that Malcolm was 38,
we were like, what?
My jaw was on the floor. It's 38. And so when did he turn 38?
I think that's why we had that moment where we were like, is there a time skip? Because when did they become 38?
Because then I told Julia, like, I remember when we had talked about, I was like, I remember Andy being the oldest. And he already said Andy was like 40.
Yeah, and Andy was...
So are we still in that same time? Because Jude is still 31.
You're right. And you know what? Yeah, but no, isn't
Maybe
Jude
we just,
34?
No, 31.
31?
Because the herald, the watch. Did he turn
Oh,
34?
that was
Oh, wait,
31
no.
back then, because now he is
Oh,
34.
now he is
yeah, they're like
34.
mid-30s. But
Yeah, no, he's 36.
oh. What? Okay, see, I feel like we're just time skipping. It's okay. So I think another big thing that we did forget to mention was during the first chapter, I believe, of part 3 with Vanities, Andy actually calls Willem out, and he's like, why have you not been taking good care of Jude? Like, how do you not know his cutting is getting worse?
Fight.
Yeah, they like start getting into a huge fight because at this point, like, Jude's cutting has been very, very bad, like way worse than before again. And basically, once Willem gets called out, he kind of is. I think that's what kind of prompts him to be like, oh, I need to be more protective of Jude, even though he honestly has been already very protective of him in general.
Yeah, I think their relationship will continue to go this way.
Me too.
And I feel like they're showing us this really strong connection only to break it apart.
I know,
at some point, and I'm scared.
And
I'm scared. I'm scared.
I laugh when I'm in trauma. I know. I laugh when there's trauma, and I'm very nervous because you're right. Like, it's always Willem, Jude, or Harold and Jude. And I'm just thinking, like I told you, how old is Harold now? What if my dear old Harold passes away? Because I had said that in one of the chapters. I was like, plot twist, watch it be Harold. And I don't think I could survive if Harold...
Then I also think about, too, like, where is this going?
Yes, you're right.
This going?
Because it's clearly taking us through their life.
Yeah.
So it's like...
A whole life?
I know, like...
A little life? A little life?
Not a little life. At that point, that would be a big life. Like... Yeah, so I'm a little nervous.
I'm so scared.
Especially since we see that Jude is declining.
Yes.
I'm getting nervous.
I'm getting very nervous as well. And I hope that Andy doesn't give up on him.
Me too.
I think that's my biggest thing because, one, I feel like every time he meets with Andy, we learn something new about Jude.
Yes, we do.
Because
that's the one he
Scott,
trusts.
yeah. And it's just like, I feel like she did such a good job with connecting us to all the characters. Obviously, other than JB and Malcolm, I don't really feel anything with them, or Julia. But the rest of them, like, I have a deep emotional connection to.
I agree. And I think another big thing that happened, see, there are like things I would keep reminding myself, was that I know Jude was saving up for that experimental procedure, but Andy's like, don't do it. Instead, I'm going to provide you like this cream. But you're going to have to ask somebody to put it on you because of the fact that it's going to be in hard to reach spots. It's going to be hard. And Jude is like, no, I can't do that. I'm just going to do it myself. And he refuses to ask Willem. And then at the end of the chapters, when he's like, okay, I need to bite the bullet. Yeah, I have to get Willem to do it. So that's a big step. That's a really big step for Jude.
And it honestly makes me so sad because I feel like with everything that Jude has, it just turns into like self-hate.
Yeah,
like
it does.
No matter what he does or like anything that he decides he wants to do for himself, he like asks the opinions of others, and then he's like, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough. It's because I'm this. It's because I'm that. Like, and nothing
convinces him.
Nothing.
And it's so sad because Jude he's so humble. Like you said in the beginning, he's not asking Harold for money because he doesn't want to take Harold's money. Yeah. Like he actually, with the job, he saved up so much money that he could buy the loft, he could make renovations and all of that. So to me, Jude is honestly incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of all we have to say. I think we're kind of trucking along and finding out more things. And it's still like, I don't know.
I feel like this chapter wasn't like a super high or a super low.
Yeah.
It was very just clean.
Like you can kind of see that there's like progression, but you still don't know where the book is going. And maybe that's the whole point, is that in life, you don't know where it's going to go. You just keep reading and you find out.
Yeah. So these next chapters, we'll be reading the last of chapter 3, I believe.
Yeah, the last part of.
Is it only just?
I think
3?
it's one more chapter of.
And then we'll
3.
start part 4.
Okay, so we'll finish up part 3 and start part 4. So stay tuned, and like we said, as before, if you think that this is too dark, too heavy for you, we will also be reading A Lunar Love, so catch that episode, which will be released soon too. But other than that, thank you for tuning in with us, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye.